Hey everyone, I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold here with our weekly lecture series. Today's lecture is entitled Attacking with Gambits. My tardive dyskinesia is acting up today, so if you don't like the lecture, you can enjoy my facial tics. So that'll be fun also. The truth hurts. Let's see. I want to thank our sponsor, Daniel Coleman, sponsored the lecture, and he wrote, Use of Gambits to Gain and Exploit a Lead in Development. Now, when my wife told me I'm going to do a Gambit lecture, I immediately thought of two games. Those are the first two games that we're going to look at. And then I thought of two openings that have gambits that I didn't know any games in particular, so I found games in those gambits. So two of them I already knew the game, and two of them are new to me, just like they'll be new to you. I feel the first two games are famous, but whenever I say that, my students furrow their brow in a vain attempt to understand the situation. They don't know any games. So I did a internet search of the word gambit, and I put Gambit Chess Wikipedia, and there's a Wikipedia article on chess gambits, and it talks about the terminology of the word gambit and how it began and so forth. So if you're a history major, somewhat interesting. A gambit is when you give up material like a pawn or a knight or a rook, and you get other advantages that aren't material. And typically in the opening, because gambits have names in the opening, they have names and they're quite common. Typically, in the middle game and end game, when you sacrifice material, we don't call it a gambit, we call it a sacrifice. If you do it in the opening and people have played it before and it has a name, then we call it a gambit. And Wikipedia did one thing good. Occasionally they do something good. At the bottom of the article, they list all the gambits they know of. King's Gambit, Queen's Gambit, Heaven's Gambit, Smith-Morra Gambit, all kinds of gambits. So you can learn the names of all kinds of gambits. And this is a 45-minute lecture, so I can't show you a game in every gambit because that would be a 4-hour lecture. But I can show you, I have 4 games prepared in 4 different gambits. So if you want to learn all the gambits that Wikipedia's heard of, and there's more, they just, you could add to it. The most common ones are listed here. Okay. So the first game I thought of when I got the lecture topic was Esserman von Wely. Marc Esserman, as you all know, is very famous for the Smith-Morra Gambit. If you live in Europe, I think they call it the Morra Gambit. In fact, I think America is the only place we call it the Smith-Morra. Morra was a chess player, and it was popularized in the US in the 70s by Ken Smith, who was a 2300 player from Texas. Also a good poker player. Probably better at poker than chess. And so Ken Smith wrote a book on the Smith-Morra in the 70s and called it the Smith-Morra because that's his name, Smith. So put his name in there. And in America, that's what we call it. Marc Esserman wrote a book about 15 years ago. And if you're on YouTube watching this after the fact, you can find out when he actually wrote it and go, he didn't write it 15 years ago. He wrote it 14 years ago or 20 years ago or something. 15 was a guess. If I had to guess which way I'm wrong, Maybe he wrote it longer ago than 15 years ago. It's called Mayhem in the Mora. In fact, he definitely, I'm pretty sure it's more than 15 years ago. So if you want to play the Smith Mora or the Mora with white, there's two books you can buy that I know of. One is Mayhem in the Mora, and one is a book that I co-authored in the year 2000 called Smith Mora Finegold Defense. And that's a way for black to play against the Mora. Although if you're playing the Smith Mora with white, you may be more interested in Mayhem in the Mora because he's trying to have you play white. And although in slow chess, I don't play the Smith Mora, I play it often in Blitz and Bullet because Gambits increase in value when you're playing Blitz and Bullet because people don't defend very well when they have 30 seconds on their clock. Now, in my opinion, and I don't know if Esserman agrees, this is the most famous Smith Mora game ever. It was played in the US Open, not to be confused with the US Championship, in 2011. And what's funny is, while this tournament was going on, I was in China and India coaching the US teams. So I didn't go to the US Open because I was out of the country. My only time in India, my only time in China. But they went back to back because I had to do coaching for different events, and they were back to back. So it worked out. It was very hot. The US Open's always in August. So I was in India and China in August. And India, the hotel I was at didn't have air conditioning. And I'm a big guy, so that was the most fun I ever had, except for one thing. China had air conditioning, but it was a little iffy. The China hotel was like 5-star. So. Okay, now Marc Esserman, as you all know, is famous for being a tennis player. Of all the IMs and GMs in the world, Esserman is the best tennis player. Basically semi-pro to pro level. And if you watch his stream, he streams on Twitch. Sometimes he's playing tennis. That's the stream. They have a camera on the ground and he's playing tennis. So, okay. Now, Loek van Wely isn't the most famous grandmaster of all time because his peak of chess was like 20 years ago, and he's from the Netherlands. And he was overshadowed by Jan Timman, who passed away 2 weeks ago. Jan Timman was the best player in the Netherlands for 30 years. And for 20 years, Loek van Wely was the second best player in the Netherlands. So when they have Tata Steel and Wijk aan Zee, which is the same tournament, typically they would invite 2 or 3 Dutch players to the top group because the tournament's in the Netherlands. And Van Wely played in a lot of those, as did Timman. Timman would have been invited anyway. Van Wely was over 2,700 FIDE, so that's pretty good. Also, Van Wely is very tall. And a joke that I tell my friends, except it's not a joke, is when I met Van Wely, I was taller than him. He was 14 years old. Now Van Wely is 6'5". So I'm not taller than him. I'm 5'8". Okay, now Van Wely likes to play, I don't know the right word, interesting chess. Van Wely doesn't like boring chess. And Esserman is the world's leading authority on the Smith Mora. And typically what a grandmaster would do is they would avoid the main lines and play something solid and try to equalize and get a boring position and outplay their opponent. Okay, but that's not how Van Wely plays chess. Van Wely likes to calculate and play tactically and so forth. Unfortunately, he ran into Esserman's preparation. He didn't know the opening as well as Esserman. Esserman sacrificed all his pieces because he knew I would be giving a Gambit lecture in 2026 and wanted to make sure, he got a game for us. Okay, so this is the Sicilian. I've played Esserman once, and I was white, and it was a Sicilian. Even though I don't play E4, I prepared something weird against normal Sicilian, and I ended up winning. We only played the one time. Okay, the Smith-Morra, which I often play in Blitz and Bullet on my stream, also is a favorite opening of one of our viewers right now, trying to learn. D4. And the idea isn't to take with the queen. The idea is to play C3 and then sacrifice a pawn. And a lot of grandmasters transpose into the C3 Sicilian by playing knight F6 here. And then after E5, knight D5, this is a C3 Sicilian. And I'll show you the main line. C3, knight F6 is the most common move. D4 takes. That's the same position I just showed you, but it's from the Smith-Morra move order. If black plays knight F6 here. And a lot of grandmasters play knight F6 here. Occasionally, when I'm black, I play D3, which is another way to decline the gambit so the white knight can't go to C3, and black's not a pawn up. But okay, if you want to refute the gambit, then you take it. Takes. Now, black has a lot of different ways to play, and there's a lot of traps to watch out for. Obviously, Von Wely, being 2,700 FIDE, is going to have some kind of preparation. He's accepting the gambit. And notice, black can't move either bishop, and white can move both of their bishops out and their knight, and has a piece out already, and at some point can play rook C1 and get on the open C file, and the other rook to D1, getting on the half-open D file. So white has a lead in development. White can develop more quickly and castle more quickly, but black's a pawn ahead. Okay, Von Wely played knight C6. That's the most common move. E6 is one of the common moves. Black can also play D6. Okay, now here, black has more than one move that grandmasters play. He played A6. Bishop B4 is another move. You can play D6. But A6, this is Von Wely's preparation. Castles. So now, since the gambit began, white has 3 minor pieces out and castled, and black has 1 minor piece out and looks like they can never castle. So white has a lead in development for the sacrificed pawn. Knight E7. Now, if you play Bug House, and a lot of kids play Bug House, a lot of adults don't, then knight E7 would be a blunder because white could put a knight on D6 and that would be checkmate. But this isn't Bug House, this is real chess. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so bishop G5. White develops a different piece every move and pins the knight to the queen. F6, unpinning the knight, never play F6. Bishop E3, knight G6. The bishop was blocked by the knight. Von Wely wants to move out the bishop, then castle, and be a pawn ahead. Bishop B3, the bishop on C4 could be attacked by one of black's pawns, so he just puts it on B3, awaiting developments. B5, so that would have attacked the bishop, and knight D5. Now, I wouldn't call this a gambit, I would call this a sacrifice. And as far as I understand, Esserman already knew this position. This is part of his preparation. And white is threatening bishop b6, which would immediately win the game. The black queen is trapped. So knight d5 has a serious threat. White's sacrificing a knight to open the center since black's king is in the center, and it looks difficult for black to ever castle. And if we take and take with the e-pawn, we open up the e-file for white's rook. Okay, so you have to take, because bishop b6 was too strong of a threat. Takes, threatening the knight. Von Wely keeps his extra piece. d6. That blocks the bishop in forever, opens the diagonal to the black king. Black's never going to castle. Black's never going to move the bishop. White has tremendous compensation for a piece. Bishop b7. You can't move the king bishop, so Von Wely moved the queen bishop. Knight takes. Pawn takes. f4, trying to open up the f file and the e file. If the e file gets open and white's able to play rook e1 check or queen e2 check, the king has nowhere to go. The bishop on b3 is defending f7. So queen f6, defending. Now black can try to castle queenside or play king d8 if the e file opens. Takes. Double attack on the queen. Queen takes. Bishop g5. Stopping black from castling, sacrificing another bishop. Now, if it's white's turn to move, which it's not, white's threatening bishop f7 checkmate with advantage. So black has to stop bishop f7 mate. So he played bishop e7. If he takes the bishop, then white has this very sneaky checkmating attack, which I'm sure Von Wely overlooked when analyzing bishop g5. We play queen e1 check instead of queen e2 check. And the reason is, if black plays the only legal king move, which is king d8, then we play queen a5 check. King c8, queen c7 mate, and if king e8, bishop f7 mate. So black would have to play bishop e7 anyway. Then white would do some checks and keep attacking. White would play bishop f7 check. And now, if you're old enough to remember the movie Sophie's Choice, which you're not, you can look it up. Black has a Sophie's Choice here. King d8 gets mated. And king f8 is worse than mate. Walking into, this kind of, checkmating attack. The funniest variation, if you have a good sense of humor, is bishop takes knight, discovered check, bishop f6, queen e7 check. The truth hurts. Followed by mate. Okay, so Von Wely played bishop e7 to try to defend his king. Bishop f7 check. Takes. Okay, and now black is a pawn ahead, but white has the two bishops, and black's king is on d8. Frankly, ridiculous. Queen d2. The idea is to play rook e1 or queen a5 check. Also, the queen defends the bishop, and the queen defends g2 in case black ever wants to play queen takes g2 mate. King c8 unpinning, rook c1 check, Knight c6. Rook d1, threatening. Queen takes d7 check. Queen f5. Bishop f4, threatening queen d6. Queen takes, queen d6, threatening queen c7 mate. King d8. Rook takes c6, sacrificing the exchange. Always sacrifice the exchange. Queen takes. Now, white's down the exchange, but white's threatening. Queen takes rook, check. White's also threatening bishop g5 check, king e8, rook e1 check, queen d6 check. It's a disaster. And Von Wely resigned. So to me, that's the most famous Smith-Morra game. You have a 2700 GM with the black pieces, and you have the guy who's known as the world's leading authority on the Smith-Morra, and his preparation and calculation overwhelmed the 2700 player who never moved his rooks. White used all of his pieces to attack and won easily.
Did Von Wely know that Esserman was the Smith-Morra guy?
Unclear. But if Von Wely did know that, he wouldn't care. Like, if you're a lower rated player, you're like, oh no, Esserman to Smith-Morra. If you're a higher rated player, you're like, Esserman, he's not even a GM, who cares? So he probably should have cared, but he probably didn't care. Probably Von Wely knew that Esserman was the Smith-Morra guy, but he just figured like, oh, I'll play him and win. Because Von Wely likes complicated tactical games, but that didn't work out well for him because white always had the initiative. Okay, now the second game that I thought of when the sponsor said, I want a Gambit lecture, is another famous game. And if Agad Mater is watching this, he's going to be very happy. It's Agad Mater's favorite opening, the Evans Gambit. And the two best players ever to play an Evans Gambit played in this game. This was played at the Tal Memorial 1995. Garry Kasparov is white and Vishy Anand is black. And Kasparov played the Evans Gambit. Very rare at the top level. Very rare. In the 1800s, 150 years ago, very common at the top level, but not now. I think Ray Robson is like the only 2700 player who plays the Evans Gambit a lot. Okay, so Anand took, and now Anand played the slightly unusual bishop e7. So probably when Anand was playing Kasparov and he prepared for the game, he didn't prepare an Evans Gambit. So he just played whatever he knew from his general preparation and figured, I've never played bishop e7, so now Kasparov will be on his own also. Bishop a5 and bishop c5 are the more common moves. Okay, d4. White sacrifices the b pawn and immediately puts pressure on black center and tries to get a lead in development and attack the f7 and e5 pawns. In this game, due to what happened, also attacked the g7 pawn, but that's rare. Okay. Knight a5, saying, get your bishop away from my f7 square. Kasparov said, fine. So the bishop on e2 isn't very active, but the knight on a5 is a bit silly. Now this pawn's hanging, then white would have a nice center. So Anand decided to be a pawn up. Kasparov took with the queen because he wants to put pressure on g7. Knight f6, e5, knight c6, queen h4. So white's a pawn down, but white makes a threat every move. White threatens the knight, and then white threatens the g7 pawn. White's bishop can move here if black castles, for example. Black's bishop can't move. g6, weakening the king side, and white castles. So white has compensation for a pawn. White has the half-open d-file. White has a bishop coming to h6. White's knight is coming to e4. And black's bishop on c8 and rook on a8 don't play very much. Anand played knight b6. He probably wants to play d5 and get his bishop out. c4. Now the knight can go to c3. d6. Rook d1, taking advantage of the half-open d-file. Knight d7. Anand has played knight f6 to d5 to b6 to d7. Kasparov sacrifices another pawn to keep black's king in the middle. Anand says, yeah, I'm 2 pawns up. And white has a big lead in development. Black's king never going to be safe. And white has open e-file and half-open d-file to get at black's king. Never play f6. Anand's trying to get his king to f7, I guess. Get his king off the e-file. c5, opening up the diagonal for the bishop, putting more pressure on the d-file. Knight f7, attacking the bishop on h6. Takes, takes. Queen e3, defending the bishop and pinning this bishop. They trade. The queen on h6 stops black from castling. If black plays king f7, I have bishop c4 check. The king has nowhere to go. So bishop f8, and black sets up for the next game. Always play bishop f8. Queen e3 check. Knight d5. Anand finally develops his bishop. Knight f4, threatening the bishop. Rook e1, pouncing on the open e-file. And after rook e1, Anand resigned. There's basically no move here. If you play bishop g7, for example, I play bishop c4. The truth hurts. So you can't play bishop g7. You can't move your king because your bishop's hanging. You can't move your bishop because then bishop c4 check would win. So you basically can't do anything. There's no move here that makes black's king safe enough. So Anand resigned. A crushing victory for Kasparov in the Evans Gambit. And Ray Robson still plays the Evans Gambit, but most 2700s don't. Hikaru's played it a couple times. But you got to know a lot of theory. And Anand played a not too common line and got in trouble right away. Back in the days when Kasparov was good. Okay, the next 2 games are with lower rated players, although Wojtaszek is white in this game, and he's 2,700 FIDE, and he was Anand's coach for World Championship matches. So Wojtaszek knows a lot of theory. He's playing Szabo, not the famous Szabo from the 50s. This is a guy who's like an IM or GM. This was played in 2007. And this is an opening I wanted to look at for this lecture. It's the Marshall Gambit, but it's not the famous Marshall Gambit. It's the other one. Marshall has more than one gambit. Okay, so in this position, the Marshall Gambit is to play e4, bishop b4 check. Now, if white doesn't want to play a gambit, white can play knight c3. Some grandmasters do that. But bishop d2 is the main move, and black takes a pawn. And then white gets the two bishops and a lead in development. So this is a very common position at the grandmaster level. White has two bishops. White has the dark squares. White wants to play queen d6, queen f8 check. And black says, I'm up a pawn. Okay, so very complicated opening. Knight a6 is the main move. Now in this position, white has two moves, and often they transpose. Here, white played the normal bishop c3, but a more exciting move, which is also very common, is bishop f8. Always play bishop f8. It's the same idea. We're attacking the g pawn, but it's more exciting because it sacrifices the bishop. Then queen d8 is mate, so you can't take the bishop. But white didn't do that. White played bishop c3. Knight e7. Black gives the pawn back to develop. Knight b4. Black sacrifices his rook. He's going to play knight c2 check and win white's rook. And that's what happened. And now black played e5. This is still theory. e5 traps the bishop and lets the black bishop get out. So now black is playing a gambit by sacrificing his rook, because now black has a lead in development. So white sacrificed a pawn in the opening, had a lead in development. Then black sacrificed a rook and gave his pawn back. Now black has a lead in development. Okay, queen d6. White says, you can have my rook. I want a lead in development. I want to attack. And black said, okay. So this is very funny because material is equal. White sacrificed a pawn on move 4. Then black sacrificed his g pawn. Then black sacrificed his rook. Then white sacrificed his rook. And now both kings are exposed. f3, attacking the queen. And if the queen starts checking, the king can run away. That's what happened. This is all theory, by the way. But the game didn't go too much longer because white understood the position and black didn't. So white wants to play either bishop f6 or bishop takes e5 or queen takes e5. Queen b1 check, forcing white to play king f2. That seems to help white. Knight c2. Maybe black wants to play queen e1 check. Bishop f6, threatening queen takes e7 checkmate. Queen e1 check. White played the computer move. King g1, the only legal move. Queen b4, defending against mate. Now, if you move your knight, then queen d8 is mate. And queen b4 is a tactical miscalculation, but there's nothing he could have done anyway. He was already losing because white's attack was too strong. Black's attack wasn't as strong as white's attack. White escaped. Black has no escape. And now white just played bishop takes knight, and white's up a knight. And there's no compensation. Or actually, white's up a bishop, I should say. Because white had the two bishops. And black resigned. So that was a very sharp, complicated game where both kings are getting attacked. Both sides sacrifice a lot. And then white was just too good. White's attack came through first. White had the two bishops. White's king ended up being safer, and black ended up losing a piece. Black probably thought he was okay after queen b4. He just forgot that bishop takes defends the queen.
Why can't he play c5 there? What am I missing?
c5 here?
No. Why can't white play c5 instead of bishop e7?
That might even be better.
There we go.
Yeah, I think c5 is better. I don't see a move here. Well spotted. That's why you get paid the big bucks. Yeah, c5 is even stronger. Wojtaszek's like, I'm a piece up. Look at me. And his opponent resigned. But yeah, he could have played c5. Typically, if you see bishop takes e7 wins, you don't look for another win. But yeah, Wojtaszek's pretty good. So I'm surprised he didn't play c5. Okay, last but not least, this is an opening that I also play in blitz chess, but not in slow chess. It's a gambit called the Milner-Barry gambit in the French defense. These players, this was played in Sao Paulo in 2005. White's 24.43 FIDE and black is 21.33. So it's a French defense. It's the advanced variation. Black puts tremendous pressure on the D pawn and white sacrifices it. So black says thanks for the pawn. And in this position, when I play on the internet, I take and play knight d2. Knight d2 is an uncommon move, which was taught to me by Alyssa Malakina. And she played it many times in her career with good results. We analyzed this a lot when I was her coach for the World Girls Championship under 21. Okay, but this guy played the usual way, which is to just sacrifice a pawn this way, then sacrifice another pawn. And so theory says black should play either a6 or queen takes e5. Notice white's giving all of his pawns away, but black's king side isn't developed too much. Okay, so this guy played bishop b4. I'm not familiar with that move. Knight b5. Now, if you take the knight, I take with check, and I win your queen. Not only do I win your queen, I have two bishops. Okay, so the queen has to move. Bishop e3 attacking the queen again. Queen moves again. a3 attacking the bishop on b4. So black played queen d4 and bishop b4, and every move white attacks those pieces. So white has all of their pieces out and castled. Black's knight isn't developed. Black's king is on e8. Your bishop's attacked. Your queen's getting harassed. Got to watch out for knight d6 check later. Okay, he played bishop back to f8. Sort of a resigning kind of move. b4, and the queen goes to d8. So obviously any chess coach would tell you white has more than enough compensation here for a pawn. And I think this is why bishop b4, which black played earlier, I don't know that move. I think this is why I don't know that move. Okay, rook c1, threatening knight c7 check. White develops another piece. Bishop c6, blocking. Knight takes a7. White gets the pawn back, but more importantly, white's threatening to take the bishop or play b5. d4, attacking White's bishop. Knight takes c6. White doesn't want to move the bishop away and give Black a tempo. Everything Black has is on the back rank. White wants to make threats. So White plays bishop e4, threatening bishop takes c6 check. Okay, now I don't have an engine going, but my brain says if you take this, I check, I take on a8, and now if you don't take my bishop, I'm up the exchange, plus I have 2 connected passed pawns. Take my bishop, you get checkmated. Okay, so Black didn't do that because that's terrible. Black played knight e7, defending the c pawn. Bishop g5. White doesn't want this pawn. White wants to punish Black by pinning. Now, if it was White's turn to move, bishop takes c6 check, wins a queen. There's nowhere for the king to go, and the knight's pinned. Rook takes a3, ignoring what I just said. Bishop takes c6 check. And you may wonder, why is Black getting crushed so badly? What's wrong with him? Well, he's 300 points lower rated than his opponent. Now you're finding out why. The truth hurts. And White takes a queen. Black doesn't resign for some reason. And then Black says, okay, I resign. Man, the king's still on e8. So another crushing victory with a gambit where White sacrifices a pawn, gets a lead in development, and keeps making threats whilst developing their pieces. And Black, in a complicated position, a lot of times low-rated players don't defend well. And I think in general, gambits are good practically because people just don't defend as well as they attack. People see good attacking moves, making threats, but they don't see the proper defenses. And when you get to the super grandmaster level, then you see better defenses. And this is why you don't see a lot of gambits at the very top level, because 2,800 players defend better than 2,100 players, and better than 1,400 and 400 and so forth. That's why I typically only play gambits myself in the opening when I'm playing blitz and bullet, when my opponent doesn't have time to find the right defense. Then I have a lot of blistering mating attacks when I play online because I'm playing very sharp. My opponent doesn't defend right. Sometimes there is no defense and the gambit's just good. But even when the gambit isn't good and the computer says the defense should win, your opponent still has to find it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm Grandmaster Ben Finegold. That was Attacking with Gambits. I want to thank our sponsor again, Daniel Coleman. If you'd like to sponsor a lecture, look in the description of the video and contact my wife, Karen, and she'll hook you up with sponsoring a lecture. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time with more weekly lectures. Bye, everybody.